instead of saying I'm just burnt out, well, maybe the better question to ask is like, how do I not be burnt out, or how to make the burnout work for me? And when someone says that they're burnt out, to me, that means that you keep performing input task A and then output task B is just like not changing, right? It's not what you want. It's like they say, like you're spinning your wheels, right? So instead of just giving up, well, how do you change that?
Hey there, this is Pod Junction Podcast, the show where business leaders share how they use podcasting to grow, connect, and build their brands. Today, I'm speaking with Robert Plank. He's a podcasting systems expert, prolific host of the Marketer of the Day podcast, and founder of DFY Podcast. With over 1,200 interviews and a business built around helping thought leaders turn their podcast into a powerful marketing engine, Robert brings deep insight into what it takes to podcast with consistency, clarity, and purpose. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Happy to be here. How do I say your name? I want to make sure I get it right.
Not a problem. It's Sadaf.
Sadaf. Nice to meet you, Sadaf, and glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I've really been looking forward to this. All right. So Robert, I want to jump in. Let's start from the top. What first drew you to podcasting?
Needing to stand out. It's so easy to hide in your shell, and that's great short term, but then long term you feel jealous, envious. You wonder like, why is everyone out there networking and making friends, and here's little old me getting left out. I'm hiding behind a computer screen, and there was this need to network and make new friends and go out to conferences, and you remember those days, right? You'd get on a plane, and if there was like a 3-day conference, it'd really take 5 days because there's the travel time, and there was just a lot of wasted time. And then things in the world have gotten so crazy, and we've got Wi-Fi and smartphones and streaming and pandemic, and all these things kind of happened, and it just all sped up. And then it turned into, well, is it really worthwhile, like going across the country to do like a networking event? Well, sure, sometimes, but you wouldn't want to do that every week. And now there's all these opportunities available online for networking, for face-to-face with podcasting. And now instead of going to like a networking event every week or every month, you can go on, you can do, dozens, hundreds of podcasts. And as far as making friends and developing relationships and all that good stuff that like some people seem to do naturally, but the rest of us don't, when you're looking for like a sustainable, repeatable, deliberate way to grow these relationships, podcasting, right? You get on podcasts, you have podcasts. It's what makes the world go around these days.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, tech has really changed the landscape for businesses, isn't it? Yeah. And I guess like it's probably been maybe become more obvious since the pandemic.
Oh yeah, 100%. But it's important to do something with it, right? Because we've all had that friend that likes to play with the toys, right? They get a new motorcycle and they just have it in the garage and they just rev it up and they don't use it, right? They get the latest computer, the latest smartphone. You think, well, that's great for you to kind of spend money on, but what about making money? What about growing your business? And so there's definitely that need for dialing into the best AI and technology, but hey, how are you going to help people? And how are you going to put it to use? So it's like there's that need to take that imperfect action and say, well, hey, I've got my equipment, got my microphone, got my camera, got my Zoom or my Riverside. Now let me go and put some mileage on it, right? Put it to use.
Robert, before podcasting became your business, what was the moment you realized that it was really working for you?
When I needed to go to one of these conferences I'm talking about, and I didn't have enough sick days. I had a 9-to-5 job. I worked at a university because I thought that I needed something safe, right? I thought I needed to build my resume. It was all this old-fashioned kind of thinking, and I would use all of my vacation days, sick days to go out there and go to conferences, and I couldn't make the schedule work. I was there, and I can't even remember my salary. I think it was like $36,000 or $41,000 per year at my job. And then that month I'd made $32,500. So I got to the point where the business in a month was making as much as the 9-to-5 was in a year. And I was like, so I'm putting off the business. I'm delaying the business. I'm not going on this trip because of this job, just for what? Stability. And so I looked at my bank account I felt a little bit of the confidence, and I told myself before I talked myself out of it, I went to my boss's office, and I said, I'm quitting. And then, put in my notice, of course, didn't quit right then and there. But then that was kind of my window, because I was barely able with I think I worked something out where, like, I put in my notice, I went off to this event, I came back, I finished up the documenting my job activities for the next replacement. And then I was like, hey, let's take a risk, because life is short. And many times we tell ourselves that, well, we're doing like the safe, stable thing. But, you mentioned the pandemic. I mean, think about how much was upended. Think about how many people, they have these careers, they have this loyalty to some company, and then they just get fired for no reason, just because things get restructured, things happen. And so you think that you have this stability, but you don't. And I think the real stability is putting yourself in the driver's seat. If you are the proper personality to be an entrepreneur, business owner, take the leap, make it happen. You can always get some other job. And that was the moment when it happened, when it's just the day job and the business, they conflicted. It was good to have that overlap, but it finally got to the point where I'm like, it has to be one or the other.
Yeah, that's a really great place to be, to finally get to that point, because that helps you then be able to jump ship and be all in your, what was a side hustle.
100%.
Yeah. Robert, I'm keen to know more from you about how your podcast feeds into your business.
So it feeds into my business as far as making content and making new connections. And then those, the content and connections turns into either a client or a referral source, which goes both ways. And so, ideally, and this, as far as the podcasters that you talk to, it'd be great if you say, all right, well, I'll make a podcast and I'll do 100 interviews and I'll talk to 100 people, and like, they'll all become my podcast clients. And it's like, well, if only the math worked out that way, right? And sometimes it's a varied journey, right? You come across someone, and maybe someday they'll be someone that works with you, or they might just be a good friend. And so there's like two paths, right? It's like, you have someone on your podcast, and boy, when you're on the podcast with someone, then you're in a much tighter, closer circle than you possibly could be, right? It's like, if you're on a podcast with someone, how many podcasts have they or will they be on in their lifetime? Like maybe 100 or 200, but for the average person, like, you might be like one of 10 or 20 people that they've been with on a podcast. So you're like really kind of close buddies in a way, right? You're in this special club. And so it's someone that is becomes a friend, right? Someone you get to know, as opposed to just, oh, here's this person I messaged with, like you and me, Sadaf, like we were in front of each other, and it's as close to in person as it could be, while still being efficient. And so you might meet that person and you have them on your podcast, and they might be someone that buys from you, but they're just someone that might then stay in your orbit, right? If when you make a social post and you're so tired of only getting one like or one comment, you take a reel, a clip out of your podcast, you post it, you tag them, and then why wouldn't they share it? Because they're part of it, they're in it. And then you're also kind of reminding them that you exist in the fun times that you had. And then if in 6 months, if someone needs Sadaf to run a podcast, or they need Robert Plank to do it, then you're more top of mind. And then likewise, say there's like, I interviewed some lady who was an attorney, or I think she was like a legal mediator for if you need to go to court to get custody of your pet. So imagine if I have some friend that says, I'm going through a real nasty divorce, I'm trying to fight to keep custody of the dog. I'll say, who do I know? Oh, this exact lady who I had on my podcast. And so two paths, right? Either a client or a referral source.
Referral. No, that's really good. Robert, what kind of results did you first start seeing when you started your podcast and were trying to connect with clients, referrals?
So I guess so it's, you're what's great about podcasts is like you kind of reignite old memories, right? And I think that when I first took podcasting seriously, my mentor told me to go on a podcast tour, and I went on 41 podcasts, and I was just amazed at how I don't know if easy is the right word, but I was amazed at how smooth it was once I got out of my own way, and once I just let myself be confident. And so many times we think about, okay, podcasting, I'll get my speaker sheet in order, right? I'll prospect to shows. And that's how we connected, right? We didn't know each other. We're just like, hey, there's all these shows you can contact, you can get on board. But I think when it clicked on with me as far as the results was, I went on a bunch of shows with my customers. And so I had a WordPress plugin like I created 15 years ago and still sell. It's called Paper Template. And what it is like, there's all these like sales letters, right? And you want it to look like a piece of paper. And then it's kind of more mainstream now, but back when WordPress was like just a blog, it was hard to take a WordPress site and make like a landing page. And so I made a plugin that did that. But then how do you make sales? Well, you look around at like content or traffic, but I had an affiliate program and I was trying to develop my affiliates. And when you have affiliates, like you get 100 of them and maybe like 2 posts to LinkedIn and that's it. It's hard to get your affiliates in your affiliate program to do much. And so I said to my affiliate list, I said, well, if you want me to be on your podcast, then send me a schedule link or we can use mine, but let's get something on the calendar. Let's show up. I'll talk for 20 minutes. And so I was on 41 shows, but they were 41 people that I already knew, that were already my customers, that were already my affiliates. And it was almost the same conversation every time. It was a little bit different, but I kind of was talking about the same kind of benefits. And then it was really smooth because the focus was on me and on this product Paper Template that we were trying to sell because they were already the affiliates for it. Yeah. And then it was a good deal for them too, because we created this unique content and then they could post it and put their affiliate link on there. And so that was just an interesting aha that the podcast episodes that you do, right? Being on a show or having a guest, it doesn't need to be with a stranger. It can be with some old mentor, some vendor, some customer, and it can be someone that you talk to every day or every month. You can be your friend. And so that was kind of an interesting just realization and some great results was developing my affiliates and giving them some extra content marketing materials.
No, that's very good because I've heard that advice before where, if you want to get known and you want to get yourself out there, go on other podcasts. And I really like how you were really strategic about it. I know you were using people you already knew, affiliates, friends, so on and so forth. And it was about plugging your product and because it was beneficial for both of you. What if there's someone who's in a position that doesn't have podcaster friends and doesn't have people and affiliates who have a platform like a podcast? What would you say to them?
Well, then I would say start with where you're at. And I think that it still is a good idea to start your own podcast and you still have friends. Like I had a podcast client a few years ago who is like a functional medicine doctor, but then people always go through different iterations in life. And she had been an emergency room doctor and she'd gone to medical school and she went back and I think she interviewed like some old professors, some old doctor colleagues. So even if you say, okay, well, maybe I'm starting some new business or I'm some new space, I don't really have my infrastructure of friends yet. Well, there's still people that you know from a previous life, or you think about you post on LinkedIn and who's always there for you, right? You make that LinkedIn, and we all have people like that, right? You make some post and, oh, that same person's liking my post again and again. Like, why not reach out to that person that you just every week you see on LinkedIn or you see on Facebook and you say, we should catch up. But many times you catch up and it's like, what's really the benefit? Well, how about you catch up in terms of being on a podcast? And then that way the conversation you would have had anyway, you have it recorded publicly and it can help people. And then it helps you and your guests because you can promote whatever they have going on. Maybe they have some new app or some new book or some new business. And then you're providing value to them. And sure, being someone's friend and talking to them is providing value, but also just that you're giving them these marketing assets, right? You follow up, give them the reels, give them the quote graphics, give them the swipe files. And so I think that as weird and silly and awkward as it might be, if there's that person that you might want to catch up with, have them on your podcast. Like I have a real estate podcast client and he's had like his wife and his kids and it's just, I don't know, it makes it something like kind of varied and different as far as your podcast format. Just have someone that you normally wouldn't think that you could have on your show.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I guess keeping in mind that it fits into what your podcast is about and who your audience is, it fits into their frame.
Yeah.
Robert, you've built a whole business on removing podcast overwhelm. What are some of the biggest blockers you help your clients with?
I help them by just making it simple and giving them choices, right? Because I think something that blew my mind was this book, Think and Grow Rich. Have you heard of it?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's heard of it, right? And it's all this amazing stuff, and all the successful people like the John Rockefeller and all these presidents. It's like this weird, like secretive Bible for business owners, and there's all these aspects of it. But I think what's huge about it is the power of using your imagination. That you have a choice, right? You can be someone who is creative, imaginative, visualizes things, or you can be someone that doesn't do that and just lets life and randomness and other bullies happen to you. And so there's definitely power in someone saying, well, I want a podcast, but I'm not really sure what the point is or what it will lead to, what it will look like. And then you get your support system, get someone helping you out, and they can say, okay, well, here's 3 graphics. Here's what your cover might look like. Oh, you don't like 1 and 2, but you like 3 and you want it to have different colors. Okay, here's iteration number 4. Or you want a different font and you want this text bigger and that text smaller. Well, here you go. And then now you're more on your way to something that is real. Like I heard the advice once of like, say you want to go back to college, right? Take the first step, right? Get a brochure, see what classes there are. Well, say your dream is to own a red Ferrari. You don't just think about it. Go in and get whatever catalog or get whatever flyer is needed and just take that first step towards visualizing it and getting it as part of your imagination. So I think that imagination is really important. And if someone is thinking about a podcast and they're not really doing it, well, look into what's required. Look at other shows and find a way to get yourself energized and excited about the possibilities. Developing any new habit is tough, right? It's like our human brains are designed for just that momentum, that inertia. Just like, hey, I'm on this track. I'll keep doing it because it keeps you safe. Because if you have something that's kind of working right now, well, why would you throw that away? So to kind of turn the boat a tiny bit, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And I think that it's important just to know what your podcast will look like or what it might look like or what it might evolve into, right? Will you have a black background? Will you have a plant in the background? What will the picture of the future be?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess what else do you find? So there's the visualization / imagination. What else do you find?
I think just knowing about the people that you want to help. And you mentioned this a few minutes ago, right? That there's that kind of self-sabotage idea of, oh, there's so many podcasts, right? There's millions of podcasts. Well, there's millions of podcasts that people have given up on, right? There's lots of shows that people started and then stopped. And why is that? Well, because the show wasn't making money, didn't have a point. Maybe it was 3 friends hanging around talking about their favorite movies. Like, who does that really benefit? It benefits them and it's fun. But you think about, okay, I'm Sadaf and there's all these people out there who they need to have their own podcast, but they're held up for all these reasons. So why not bring in all these experts that have made it work, that are having fun with it, that have turned it into real business? That way you can be an encourager. So I think that it's really important to think about who are the people that you're helping. And I really hate that the idea of like the ideal client avatar. Isn't that such a weird, like impersonal concept? But you think about, okay, well, like who needs the encouragement? Who really could benefit from having a podcast, but they're just like, I don't have the time, I don't have the money. They make all kinds of excuses. So you really think about those people that you want to help. And that's a great driver for a lot of reasons, right? If your show is what it should be, if you got the right guests, it kind of helps you to continue forward because you're like, hey, it's not just about me, it's about helping other people. So really think about those people that you want to help with your podcast.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Robert, before we started recording this, we were chatting, weren't we? And you've done 1,400 episodes.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just crazy. That's so many episodes. It's congratulations. But I'm really keen to know what helps you keep going without burning out.
Well, knowing what the results is really helped, and just
Mm,
taking that calendar seriously. And I've definitely gone through lots of ups and downs with psyching myself out, talking myself out of maybe
mm,
giving up the podcast. What's the point? And it's so important, right? Because you figure, okay, like if someone wants to work with you and they look on your social media or your website or they Google you, what will they find? And if your last LinkedIn post was 8 weeks ago, that's really not good, right? But if your last
mm,
post was 2 hours ago, like, hey, here's someone who takes their business seriously. And so the output that comes from podcasting is really important, and especially the way that the AI is really ramped up, and LinkedIn and prospecting. I'm always learning about like salesmanship, right? And keeping your sales pipeline full. And these people that are like really, really good salespeople, that they talk to hundreds of people. I'm like, okay, that's what I need to do. I need to talk to hundreds of people. And what does that mean? Well, it means you figure out a system that works. You figure out your step-by-step process, and you block out the time to make it happen. And you get those appointments on the calendar, and then you show up to those appointments. And so any
mm,
problem that you have in front of you, like the problem of like getting burned out, well, why is that something that might defeat you? Because it's this size, it's huge, and then you're this size, you're small, right? If your
mm,
problem, the size of it, is bigger than you are, then of course it will defeat you. Of course it will crush you. So how
mm,
do you crush your problems? You break them up into smaller sizes, and then,
mm,
hey, I can tackle that. I can tackle that. So you say, well, step one, am I contacting new people on a consistent, reliable basis? Okay. Step two, if I am I getting those people on my calendar? Is it leading to something? And then step three, am I then showing up to record and do my show? And then maybe step four, am I like catching the ball, right? Do I have something in place? Do I have a team such as your excellent service, Sadaf, where after you record the show, is something then being done with it? And hey, instead of a big problem, it's four little problems. And I feel like out of those four, then you can say, well, where am I struggling the most, or which is the toughest? And I think that for me, I can't remember what the exact numbers I just said, but like the whole thing of if I had appointments on the calendar, then I
mm,
kind of try to talk myself out, like, oh, well, do I need to get to this 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock thing? And I had a lot of different podcast guests where I asked that question. I said, well, how do you take the
mm,
calendar seriously? And I got different answers. And one person said, well, do the mental work, like look into
mm,
mindfulness, meditation. And if you find yourself with that negative self-talk, then you need to retrain, right? You need to like pull
mm.
up those, as silly as it is, pull up those audios on YouTube and like make it a habit for 30 days to like listen to that. And it's like, you put a appointment in a calendar for that to take the other calendar appointment seriously. So there's that. There's like
Yeah.
retraining your brain. And one of the podcast guests said, well, if you were like an attorney or a judge or a surgeon, and if that surgeon had appointments on the calendar, would they say, oh, well, Saturday at 10 a.m., I'm not sure if I can go and do someone's
Yeah.
brain surgery? Like people are depending on you. So it's like
Mm,
maybe play the mental game there and exaggerate a little bit the importance of you being there. That way you're forced to take it seriously. And so I think that a lot of people can't crack it, right? A lot of people don't do it. They give up on their podcast, but it's up to people like you and me and my clients and your clients to rise above it and to figure it out and to build something great. So take that
mm.
calendar seriously.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, I love how you're just given some really great practical, proactive tips to make sure you don't get to that place. And I agree. Like, you sometimes you just don't want to show up, and you do need to retrain the way you're thinking, because people are depending on it. And it's integrity, isn't it? You've said you're going to do it, so you got to do it. But I'm curious to know what you think is the mindset that you would need to carry, throughout your podcasting journey. It's not just when you're feeling burnt out, but even maybe to avoid the burnout. It's just, what would you say to that?
I would say be an encourager. And like that term burnout, I know it's it's so mainstream, but I'm always like, do people really know what it means? Right. Or is it just something that people throw out as a cop out? And it's like, I think that you always have to be an encourager, but also be curious about your surroundings and the stories you're telling yourself. Because I mean, we all do it, right? We tell ourselves these stories or fixate on these phrases that they don't even make sense, other than we say, hey, I don't feel like podcasting, I'm burnt out. And it's like, yeah, but like which of the four types of burnout is it? And instead of saying I'm just burnt out, well, maybe the better question to ask is like, how do I not be burnt out, or how to make the burnout work for me? And when someone says that they're burnt out, I'm thinking like, okay, well, to me, that means that you keep performing input task A, and then output task B is just like not changing, right? It's not what you want. It's like they say, like you're spinning your wheels, right? The wheel's spinning and the car's not going anywhere. So instead of just giving up, like, well, how do you change that? Is the problem that you need to be talking to better people? Okay, which people? And I think for a lot of people, the problem, the lack, is follow-up. I think that there's this, well, someone told me I needed to do a podcast, or I went and saw someone doing a podcast, and I thought, ooh, that looks easy, I'll do that. Just like, that person's a race car driver, I'll do that. And then it's like, well, you incompletely copy the system, right? You look at that they're, okay, well, Joe Rogan, he's going there and recording stuff. Yeah, but what are you doing afterwards? Are you actually like following up with those guests, and are you getting some results of that? And I think that I iterate through because I have 1,400 episodes, and then out of that, 1,200 are interviews. I go on and iterate through those all the time, right? I go through and I tell my podcast guests, like even from 5-10 years ago, I'm like, hey, here's our podcast on YouTube. Could you leave a comment? And then I run the whole transcript through ChatGPT, and I say, hey, a comment you could leave is boom, this, and they could paste it. I make it easy for them. And then when I iterate through them, when I see like 132 comments that month on the different podcast episodes, some 5-10 years ago, I'm like, hey, now I'm seeing some kind of results. Or when it reactivates the relationship, and then they become a client, or they make an affiliate sale, or I get them on the podcast again. So it's like, well, if you're burnt out or giving up, it's maybe because you're bored, and because you're like getting the same results back out instead of bigger and bigger results. So focus on that part of it, right? Focus on the solution and the new outputs that you want to make, and not on your maybe unmet expectations, and don't fixate on the problem, because you get more of what you focus on, right? You focus on the problem, you have more problems. Focus on the solution, you'll change your trajectory.
That's very good. So before we started recording, we were also talking about the importance of consistency.
Yeah.
In terms of, making sure that, as we were talking just now, about showing up for your listeners and for your guests that you've got on your show. I'd love to hear you talk more about that for the sake of our listeners now, just the importance around that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm just I don't think I'm autistic, because sometimes I've gone and looked on like autism tests, but I do enjoy like a little bit of structure, right? Like I know, like when I was a kid, I would tune into like a TV show, and I'd watch like the very beginning, and I'd watch the opening credits, and I'd be like, cool, I've seen it. I don't need to see character development or plot. Like, I'm enjoying the fonts that are flying on the screen, and I enjoy the theme song and the music more than the actual show. And so I don't know if it's just me, but it's fun to think about the structure of things, right? And especially how you can try out different things in your podcast and figure out a flow, a formula that really works for you. And that allows you to just relax. You think about like, if there's like a talk show or something, right? They have like, maybe they'll have like an opening skit, and then they'll have like a monologue, and then they'll have the news or something, and then they'll have their guests. That's kind of fun and interesting to think about, that there is an expected format. And even though like a talk show or something, they'll kind of have the same structure, but then within that structure, it's different every time. And so I think that there's like two different extremes, right? You have a podcast and you're unprepared, different lengths, don't know where it goes. And the other extreme is like, well, it's asking all the same questions of your guests.
Yeah.
But then if you can kind of play with it and find the middle ground of like, okay, well, I have these kinds of guests and I'll be looking for these sorts of answers. But then if they say something interesting and I'll pick up the thread, then there's, I think, where you can maybe like work the different parts of your brain at the same time, right? There's the mild autistic part where you can kind of enjoy the structure, the rigidity, the predictability. But then there's also the fun and the unexpectedness that comes with that. And I think that it's a good like form of self-expression, because I heard that once, that like your business is a form of self-expression. Well, your podcast really can be too, right? Especially if you figure, well, my podcast doesn't have to fully live in my niche, right? Like you talk about podcast production and starting a podcast, but I mean, you can pull in all kinds of wacky different people in different kinds of podcasts, right? You can pull in like old radio hosts. You can pull in like TV people, and so you can like have fun with the playfulness of it. And I think that you have to have both, right? You have to have the system, the format. That way you are consistent, and that way you have your templates, and that way when you have a guest and they say, well, what's your show about, or what could I do on your show? You kind of have those answers. But then when you have someone on your show, then the magic can happen, right? You have the flexibility, adaptability, not just get stuck on the same old questions. So you kind of have both and you play with it.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. You got to have fun with it. And, going back to what you were saying, really, that if you're having fun with it, that's what's going to help you show up consistently as well, because it's bringing you joy and you're meeting people and being able to have fun conversations with them. So yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah.
So Robert, let's talk strategy a bit more. How can a podcast actually generate leads or drive revenue?
Well, first you have to record those episodes, and then like we talked about the following up with your guests, and then you have to like look at whatever marketing channel that there is, right? You look at where you're building a list. Are you building an email list? You have your website, you have your social media. So you need to be steady on that and figure out like, okay, what's my plan and where am I posting and how often? And that's kind of like the foundation, right? You like a lot of people want to jump to getting a sponsor and getting ads, but you have to do things in the order of importance, right? If you want to get a sponsor, well, you have to have some solid download numbers, and you look up like your industry rates and like the expected amount that advertisers pay, and you say, well, if I've got this number of downloads, I can get this amount of money. And in order to get those number of downloads, you have to have some traffic, right? And you have to be established and be posting regularly, consistently. And then from there, then you say, well, maybe I'll run some little ads or do my mid rolls or things like that. And I think that in order to grow the show, you have to put out episodes consistently. And I'm really a big fan of not doing too many solo episodes. Have your guests. That way you can use their network. You can figure out where they're established, tag them on LinkedIn, have them share it on TikTok, and just build in all the places. And then it's kind of like a choose your own adventure at that point, as far as which traffic method works, which platforms to focus on, which ads to run. But the foundation is like putting out enough content consistently and following up with your guests and using their influence, their network.
Yeah. So you're talking about repurposing content, to keep that momentum going across the different platforms. What are some of the most effective platforms, would you say, or does that depend on the business?
I think it depends, but I'm a big fan of YouTube Shorts and of LinkedIn. And I've always been an email marketing person, and I always will be, even though like email's taken such a beating the last 10 or 20 years. It used to be, you say, well, if I want to sell something, like people only buy from me if they open up an email. And like, that's kind of Facebook and LinkedIn especially have kind of edged them out a little bit. And there's always like the deliverability. So I think that kind of an untapped thing that should be done is build your email list, and you put out a podcast episode, mail that list, even if it's only got 5 subscribers or 500 subscribers, mail that list. But as far as the numbers, you post something to YouTube, sometimes you only get like 10 or 20 views, even if you have a decent sized channel. It's like what gives, but you put out these YouTube shorts and sometimes you'll get thousands of views just because I think they're trying to compete with TikTok, right? They're trying to show like the shorter clips to people. And so that's something that not every podcaster does, right? Because you record this like, 20, 30, 40-minute long episode and you post it all on YouTube. And if someone's already interested in your show, if they're a fan, they might listen. But if they've never heard of you or your show before, they might not. But you pull out the quick little clips, you put them on YouTube Shorts, and when they're going flick, 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 and they're training the algorithm, then they end up on your show. And then you use those same reels on LinkedIn. And I mean, we open up LinkedIn and that's like half of what we see, right? Half is like the AI generated text and graphics. And then the other half are the quick reels. And I've gotten so many little ahas. I've gotten little like Gary V clips and Alex Hormozy and just been like, oh man, they pack so much into that little 59 seconds. And so those are my favorites these days is YouTube Shorts and LinkedIn. And I'm sure it does depend on what your podcast is about and your own numbers. And if you have like, a huge Instagram account, then pull up the best quotes out of your show and have your team bring up Canva and put a picture of your guest and put their quote in front. And then you have a graphic and that's something for Instagram. And so if you have like 30,000 Instagram followers, then post where you're at. But yeah, just YouTube and LinkedIn are where it's at for me. And not everyone uses it and they should.
Do you use newsletters, blogs? Is there anything else, or do you just stick to those two platforms primarily?
So I do have fun with the LinkedIn newsletters because like it's like, man, yeah, there's all these platforms that we always forget are there. Like there's Substack, and that's great because people can subscribe and get a notification. And then I have been having fun with the LinkedIn newsletters, and like it's just all these platforms have all these nooks and crannies that we don't always realize, right? So on LinkedIn, you can make a post, but it's like limited in length. It's like a Facebook post. You can only go like, half page. But then in LinkedIn, you can do a LinkedIn article, which is more like a blog post. And these days with ChatGPT, what you do is you take your big old long podcast transcript and you say, okay, well, what could be an outline? Like if this was a long form blog post, what would be the introduction, point 1, point 2, point 3, conclusion? And it like develops all that. And then you say, well, what would be the introduction? And that gives you half a page, right? What would be point 1? Half a page. What would be the conclusion? Half a page. And you end up with like this like 4-page long blog post that gets into all the nooks and crannies of your podcast, but then it won't fit into a LinkedIn post, but it will fit into a LinkedIn article, which is like a blog post. And then not a lot of people use that because they say, hey, you need to make a graphic. Well, you tell ChatGPT I need a graphic, or you use Canva, you make a few clicks, you whip it up. And then so that's the LinkedIn article. And then you can make what's called a LinkedIn newsletter, which is like an article, but it's like comes out regularly. And what's really great about the LinkedIn newsletter is I find myself subscribing to a lot of people's LinkedIn newsletters, right? You go on someone's LinkedIn profile, you kind of size them up like, oh, who's this Sadaf? Is she, what's she all about? And then if she has a button there that says newsletter, you one click subscribe to it. And then when she comes out with a new newsletter post, then hey, I get a pop-up. And with the magic of podcasting, you don't have to waste 2 days out of the week writing that newsletter. You do a podcast interview with, say, Robert Plank, you feed it all through ChatGPT, you kind of get all that stuff generated, you refine it, and it becomes like the blog post that you would have written, but it came about from a podcast interview. And so yeah, it's just amazing how there's all this short form and long form stuff out there, right? There's the Substack and the LinkedIn for the long form. There's the X and the TikTok and the Threads for the short form. It's so scattered and different people have different personality types, way of learning. And you take that podcast and make the short stuff, make the long stuff, and reach all sorts of people.
No, you're right. It really is. It's really great. And AI has made life so much easier for those who need to create the content. Would you say that would be a growth strategy? Repurposing content, creating content and repurposing content?
Yes, I think so. I think that even if you have like say you're in a position where you have an established podcast, right? You have 50, 100 episodes. Maybe you're slowing down, right? Maybe you're getting burnt out the way that we're talking. You've taken a
Mm-hmm.
break, and you say, well, I'm sitting on all this old content, and the way that there's all these AI tools, like you can go back and just improve and beef up what you already have. And,
Yeah.
and even like I'm sure your team will do this even, right? Just go back and fix up someone's show notes, someone's SEO, someone's thumbnails, and say, because I know like there were a bunch of so many years past when my podcast wasn't video. I just had audio only, and then I switched
Mm-hmm.
to video, and I was like, now that I'm video, I need to put these shows on my YouTube channel. And even though some of the old episodes were audio, I can go in and make them like audiograms, like have the still
Mm-hmm.
image. And then there's like the waveform that's moving as people talk. And it's like, hey, there's all these videos I could put out. And so I think that with all these like AI tools out there, it's so overwhelming, but you need to use it in a proper way. So don't just like run a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff through, but like there's definitely some growth to be had of
Mm-hmm.
saying like, okay, well, I've heard Substack is good. Well, go back to your old episodes and start cranking out the blog posts and fix them up a little bit. The blog posts on your website, if your Buzzsprout or your Podbean or your Libsyn or wherever you post your podcast, if you just post the the audio and then the same old blurb, well, develop that
Mm-hmm.
out, right? Figure out what are the important timestamps, talking points, links, important discussions that were had, like build some of that stuff out, because Google's always hungry for that, and ChatGPT, like there's all this talk about like 0-click searches. So if someone's like looking for a solution and they put it in ChatGPT or they put it in Google and they don't click on a link, and the AI kind of does its thing and says, hey, you're not even clicking on a link yet, but here's the solution. It's up to you to put out a lot of helpful information and
Yeah.
to put it in a way that the bots can easily digest. So that way, if someone's looking for, like, how do I run a podcast, and Sadaf wants to be right there in front of all that, then you create the content, make it accessible, and that's a great way of getting growth. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
use those AI tools, especially on your older shows that maybe you haven't looked in at a while, and create some new stuff, right? Create new reels, graphics, posts. That way, it can get to the right people, because you're never doing enough, right? There's never enough repurposing.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's really good advice, because when you're podcasting, you've got a wealth of knowledge and information in the back, with all your old episodes. And you're right, you can't ever do enough repurposing. That's good.
Yeah.
Robert, what would you say to a founder who's on the fence and has been for a while, and maybe, about wanting to start a podcast and taking that leap, but hasn't done it yet?
I think that they should talk to you, but I think that also, I mean, what do you have to lose, right? And give yourself a trial period, because I think that so much of what we do or don't do comes down to our mindset. And there's been moments where we finally took some action, finally took the leap, and it's definitely valuable to go back and think about, like, what finally tipped the scale. Was it that you logically decided and you looked at the pros and the cons, and then there was one little event that finally tipped it in for you? Or did you say, I'm going to try this podcasting thing for 60 days. And at the end of 60 days, I'll like, or at the beginning, I'll decide what success looks like, right? What's my goal?
Yeah.
Do I want to have 10 podcasts? Do I want to have a new sale, a new client, 100 opt-ins? Like, what's my goal? And then give yourself 60 days and take it seriously. And if you didn't hit your goal, was it because you didn't perform the actions right, or was it because you did perform the actions right and like the output wasn't what you wanted? But like, you don't know until you have the data. And then sometimes you do have to psych yourself out. Like, I had a friend once who I think for some reason he had to climb up on a roof. I don't know if he was like painting or tarring the roof or something, but he was like too afraid to climb the ladder. And the friend said, well, let's say that there was $100,000 cash up there on that roof. Would you climb the ladder? Well, yeah. So it's possible to climb the ladder. It's just, for how much
What's your
reward
motivation?
is it worth it for you? And so there's
Yeah.
these things that we all tell ourselves, oh, I can't do that. I couldn't run a mile in 8 minutes. Well, if there was $100,000 cash at the end of the 8 miles, would you at least try your best? And if you ran a 9.5 minute mile instead of 8 miles, wouldn't that be like, it wouldn't be 100% a success rate, but wouldn't it be kind of closer than you were when you started and that you thought? And so, yeah, it's like, you got to give podcasting a try, but you need to have some real clear goals. Like Brian Tracy says that only 3% of the population has actual concrete goals that they've written down and act on every day. Only 3%.
Wow.
So if you want to stand out, then perform those habits, right? Figure out what you want, write it down. And if podcasting fits into that, and it can, if you're all about networking and traffic and the social content and the SEO and relevance, then figure out a way to fit that into that plan, write it down, take it seriously, have your mentor support system, and execute the dang plan.
That's very good. Thank you, Robert. Robert, this has been such fun. Thank you for all your insight.
Happy to be here. I had a fun conversation.
Awesome. But before we wrap up, if listeners want to learn more about you and your work, where should they go to do that?
They should go to marketeroftheday.com. That's my podcast. And that's where we talked about how there's the fun formula to be had of you listen to 1 or 2 episodes and you kind of hear my structure about how I'm curious about all different types of people, all different types of business owners, entrepreneurs. And it's just a good place to kind of get tapped into that entrepreneurial mindset and listen to people you normally wouldn't come across. And then the website for my service is dfypodcast.com. I'd like to make it simple. If you're the kind of person that says, well, I want a podcast, but I'm so overwhelmed with all the possibilities, then we just have a team that goes to work and makes it happen for you. You give us your recordings and we do the distribution and show notes and put it on all your social platforms. So those are the 2 resources. Marketeroftheday.com is the podcast and dfypodcast.com is the service.
Perfect. Thank you so much. To those listening in, all the links that Robert has just mentioned can be found in the show description. And if you've been wondering how to make podcasting actually work for your business, not just as content, but as a relationship and growth engine, I hope that Robert's story and strategies have helped create a clearer path forward for you. And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please do reach out if you have any feedback about the show or would like to be a guest. I would love to hear from you. And I'll see you next time.